Can you relate to the feeling that the disciples had? I don't have enough faith for this. I don't know how to get through this. But Jesus is clear. You do. You do have enough. You just don't recognize it. Maybe the reason we don't recognize it is because it doesn't always look like we expect faith to look. Last week, a parishioner sent me a card in the mail, and on the front it had a quote that I had seen portions of before, but I'd never read the entire quote. It was from the French writer Victor Hugo, and it said, "Have courage in the great sorrows of life, and patience for the small ones. And when you have accomplished the tasks of the day, go to sleep in peace. God is awake." When you face the big sorrows of life, bring courage. And for the little day-to-day stuff, bring patience. And then you can go to sleep because God's awake. Maybe one of the issues of why we think we don't have enough faith is because faith doesn't always look like we expect faith to look. Sometimes it looks like courage in the hard times and patience in the day-to-day. Let's take a look at patience first for the small things. If you have patience, you basically have a superpower. A lot of us lack patience, but that's because we don't realize what it is. Patience is a decision that you make. No one comes out patient. We're not patient as a species. Our emotions don't tell us this would be a good time to just sit back and wait. No human says that. Our emotions are always guiding us and telling us this should already be here. Why am I still having to wait? Why am I unfulfilled? So when we feel that, we need to lean on that decision we've made to instead be patient. What makes patient people different from the rest of us is that they're just as mad as we are. But when they're about to send the email, they think, this may not be productive. There's no reason why I can't just put it in my drafts overnight. That's why I have drafts. Just put it there. If I still agree with what I'm saying tomorrow, then great. But maybe I need to tweak it, or maybe I need to trash it. But there's nothing to be gained from right now. Patient people, when they're having a real tough conversation, say things like, I know I'm feeling really stressed right now, and I can tell that you are too. Why don't we talk about this later when we feel calmer? They don't feel calm. They're telling you they don't feel calm. They've made a decision. This will be more productive. What's funny about impatience is if we take a look at any time we are impatient, it always reveals something to us that if you're willing to look at this, you'll see it's true. It reveals that we've had the wrong expectations. When we think to ourselves, why do they still not understand what I'm saying? I've said it perfectly clearly. Or if we say, why is this line here at this time of day? This place should be quieter this time of day. Or if we say, my oil change should have been done 20 minutes ago. Why is it taking so long? What it shows is, we don't know. We don't know how long an oil change takes because there's a million variables in any day of life. We have no idea how to communicate in a way that someone who is raised differently can hear it in the way that they will understand. We have no way to know how busy the throughway toll booth is going to be any time of day. We don't know. That's beyond us. Impatience reveals our expectations were too high. We need to adjust them. The thing that patience does for us is it provides a way for us to carry around the issues of life more easily. It can be compared to a wheelbarrow. Patience is a wheelbarrow. You put your stuff in it and carry it around a little more easily. It's still there, it's still heavy, but it's not as hard to get around with it. So for the small things of life, faith doesn't always feel like faith. It feels like patience. But I don't know if you're like me. There have been times that what I was dealing with would not fit in a wheelbarrow. Sometimes you need a dump truck. When you are dealing with something so hard that people are saying things like, I'm praying for you, then you need faith to take a different form. Faith in the hard times of life, the really big stuff, the stuff that only comes around once or twice in life, that's a time for courage. We're hearing about that in that first reading. That first reading hits us hard from the beginning. Why, God, are you letting me live through this? Why should a person have to go through what I'm going through right now? Why should I have to see this or experience this? And I know that I've felt that before, and I've heard some of you express that as well. In our life, it takes the form of saying things like, I knew life would be hard, but for the cancer to come back, it isn't enough to survive cancer once. The cancer's got to come back. It takes the form of, God, how could you let me have that person and then take them from me? How could I have that and then lose it? How could you permit that to happen? God, have you lost my file somewhere? Can you check around your desk? See if you've got my file? God, are you awake? Are you there? Are you sleeping? The writer Anne Lamott says, we need to realize that faith is not like a trusty pet dog. Faith does not show up at your bed in the morning with the newspaper and your slippers in its mouth. Faith is a decision that you make by applying what really matters to the situation you're facing. When we are in the worst times of life, faith looks like courage. Courage is faith at its highest testing point. When faith is pushed to the very edge, it's courage. That got me thinking about G-force. You know, anybody who's ever been a fighter pilot needs to be tested against some pretty heavy G-force experience. G-force is your speed multiplied times the force of gravity. So that's why when you're on a roller coaster and somebody takes your picture, your cheeks are all pushed back. But the thing that fighter pilots go through is 1,000,000 times a roller coaster. They have to be tested before they can fly at G-force 9 times the regular force of gravity. Can you even imagine 9 times the force of gravity pressing on every square inch of your body at once? It can kill a person. It does kill people. Because when the G-force hits you at that rate, it pushes all the blood out of your brain. The only way you can survive it is if you follow the techniques given to survive it. There's a certain way to hold your throat. There's a certain way that your breath needs to be held and then expelled. You have to tense your muscles at the perfect moment so that they can survive the force. And I've been told that a fighter pilot only needs to survive it once. They would never put them through the test more than once they pass, because it can kill you anytime you go through it. Many of you know Chuck Yeager. He was the first pilot ever to break the sound barrier. Chuck Yeager wrote in a memoir that right before he was breaking the sound barrier on that flight, the cockpit was shaking so violently, he almost couldn't do it. He almost didn't have the courage to keep his hand on the throttle. He said, I can't do it. And he said the shaking and the pressure was the most violent right before he broke the sound barrier. Isn't that always the way, though? Isn't that always the way? It's the worst right before the breakthrough. For the great sorrows of life, faith doesn't feel like faith. It feels like courage. So this week, a question for all of us is, what do I need right now? What am I needing more of? When I say, Lord, increase my faith, what is it that I need increased? Patience or courage? If you are going through something right now so intense you're not sure if you can survive the G-force, you need to be brave. Faith is going to feel like courage. If you are dealing with the enduring hardships of life that are so difficult, then it takes the form of patience, letting go of expectations. That's what putting our faith to work means, being brave and being patient. And if we're able to do that, we can go to sleep. We can sleep like Charles Webster. Because we don't need to worry. God is awake.